Selena was this star that no one had ever seen before.
She was really a groundbreaker in the Latin music scene.
Selena was the first of her kind.
There are many sad and tragic stories in the history of pop music. Selena's story may just be the most tragic.
The value of Selena, her image, her music, just kept growing after her death.
Selena is a very powerful and valuable brand now.
Her father, Abraham, knew enough to lock up all of her rights.
Chris Pérez, her husband, gives up all rights to control Selena's intellectual property.
But when Chris wanted to do a television show about Selena's life, that's when everything changed.
There is a battle over Selena's estate. It's Abraham versus Chris.
When a celebrity checks out, there's no shortage of people ready to cash in. There's a ton of money to be made on the backs of dead celebrities. And with millions of dollars at stake, the battles over the estates of the rich and famous can lead to some serious drama. This is the story of Latin music star Selena Quintanilla, who was on the brink of mainstream pop success when one woman's obsession cut her life short, and how her enduring star power continues to impact her estate's fortune. March 31st, 1995. Corpus Christi, Texas police converge on a Days Inn hotel and surround a red pickup truck. Inside is the person suspected of shooting 23-year-old singing sensation Selena Quintanilla.
Selena is found in the motel lobby shot.
The circumstances under which Selena dies are like a horror movie. It's something that you couldn't make up.
Selena is rushed to the hospital, but it's too late. She is pronounced dead just after 1 p.m. Back at the hotel, police are engaged in a tense standoff with the suspected shooter. After nearly 10 hours, the police convince a lone female suspect to leave her vehicle, and she's eventually taken into custody. The shooter is identified as Yolanda Saldivar, the president of Selena's fan club, manager of her fashion boutiques, and one of her close confidants. Selena's death shocks her fans, who struggle to come to terms with the loss.
She was just this rising star that no one had ever seen before.
Already a big name in the Latin music scene, before her death, Selena Quintanilla was poised to take the mainstream pop world by storm with the impending release of her English crossover album.
It's very interesting when you contemplate that this 23-year-old girl who was murdered at the height of her success is still the name we connect when we think of Latin music.
One of the first Latinx female role models, Selena would pave the way for stars like Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, and one of the successful singers in today's music scene.
Part of her legacy lives on in the namesake of one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now, Selena Gomez, who was named after her.
It's been over 20 years, and you know, when you hear a Selena song come on the radio, there's a little bit of a heartbreak when you listen to it because you think about how much potential was lost when we lost her.
There are estimates that Selena generated as much as $5 million in the year before she died, but those are quickly disproven.
A lot of people were under the incorrect belief that Selena had a lot of money. She was selling records, she was selling out tours, she was selling out stadiums, but what she was getting as an artist was a very small fraction of that. At the time of her death, her entire estate was $326,000.
Some of Selena's personal assets entered into probate court by her father at the time of her death include 1 Grammy Award, 7 Tejano Music Awards, a pickup truck, a motorcycle, furniture, her decorative egg collection valued at $3,600, and a 1986 Porsche Targa 911 worth $22,000, clothing including her stage costumes and signature bustiers valued at nearly $50,000, musical instruments worth about $52,000, and jewelry estimated at $29,000. It's discovered that Selena does not have a will.
So when she died, it's the laws of the state that govern the way the money would get separated and the estate would be distributed.
Selena's husband of 3 years, Chris Pérez, receives 50% of her $326,000 estate. But it's unlikely that's the total of Selena's net worth.
Doesn't mean that Selena didn't have more money. How? Well, she could have had life insurance policies, she could have had joint bank accounts with her husband, her father, other people, and none of that money goes through the court system.
Additional assets in the singer's estate include Selena Etc. boutiques in Corpus Christi and San Antonio. And perhaps the most valuable, Selena's intellectual property rights.
Intellectual property really relates to the creation of the music, the copyright of the music, and who has the right to sell this music. And in addition to the music, it's the image of the singer.
So all those factors come into play on how a particular personality is going to be remembered into the future.
Since 1995, Selena's star power and earning potential has continued to skyrocket. As of 2015, she sold over 65 million units worldwide. And the endorsement deals keep coming.
The value of Selena, her image, her music, just kept growing after her death. And it continued for many, many years to come.
I know that Selena will be remembered in many ways.
In the wake of Selena's tragic death, her father and manager, Abraham Quintanilla, vows to protect his daughter's legacy with the same devotion he displayed during her lifetime.
Even in the midst of his grief, her father Abraham knew enough to lock up all of her rights so that nobody would be able to do anything with them.
If we jump ahead to today, Selena is a very powerful and valuable brand now.
A brand so valuable that 20 years after Selena's death, an estate war erupts, pitting Abraham against Selena's husband, Chris Pérez, over who will have the right to tell Selena's story and ultimately control her image.
There was always some tension between Abraham and Chris. This just got worse after Selena died.
Born April 16, 1971, Selena Quintanilla was the youngest of 3 children raised in a tight-knit Mexican-American family living in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Abraham, Selena's father, was a singer when he was younger, not to any great degree of success. But when he heard his daughter's voice, he knew what he was listening to. He knew what she actually had, and he capitalized on that.
Selena's career was very much a family affair. Not only was her brother and sister in her band, but her father pretty much ran the show. He knew the music business.
Their band is called Selena y los Dinos, and they perform Tejano music, which has roots in Texas Mexican culture.
Tejano music is a hybrid music. It is part traditional Mexican folk music and also an amalgam of European folk musics and polka. It's really a hybrid.
As a female, Selena is a rarity in this unique genre. But Abraham Quintanilla is determined that Selena's band make it big in the music industry.
There weren't a lot of venues available to Selena and her siblings. So her father wisely decided that he would create one.
So one of his great ideas is to start this Tex-Mex restaurant. And it's a perfect platform for Selena y los Dinos to perform at. And they couldn't afford professional lights, microphones, and things like that. But he was very resourceful. He took these peach cans and strung them up like actual stage lights, and they worked.
But the venue will be short-lived. Abraham struggles to make ends meet and eventually has to close the family restaurant.
When that failed, it was a really hard time for the family.
It was a difficult time, but they had each other.
Abraham vows to keep Selena's band going. He manages to scrape together enough money to purchase a broken-down school bus that he converts into a tour bus.
It was a disaster of a tour bus. They suspect he may have spent a few $100s on it, but it also looked like it.
The family hits the road playing gigs to Tejano communities all over Texas. They manage to scrape by, but sometimes they aren't even paid in cash for their performances.
At times, they were paid in food.
In burgers, to be exact. From the Texas-based fast food chain, Whataburger.
And at the time, they were about 70 cents, so you could only imagine how much they were actually making.
Despite being a rare female Tejano performer, Selena slowly wins over audiences.
Selena got the reputation of kind of being the poster child of Tejano music. She was this little thing with so much energy and this combination of good girl and sex appeal, and rose to fame very, very quickly with a very, very dedicated fan base.
Siempre he pensado que sin la gente o el público nosotros no somos. Y por lo tanto tengo que agradecer el público.
In 1986, Selena wins the first of her eventual 8 Tejano Music Awards for Best Female Vocalist.
The minute that you win an award, it changes everything.
When she's 17, Selena attains her first lucrative endorsement deal.
The first big deal was a deal with Coca-Cola for $75,000.
This is big. This is big money. This is big exposure.
As Selena's star is beginning to rise, she falls in love, which puts her in direct conflict with her father, Abraham.
He was protective of his daughter, and she was also the star of the show. He didn't want anything messing it up, especially a bad boy like Chris Pérez.
When rising Tejano star Selena Quintanilla is tragically shot and killed in 1995, her legions of fans are in shock. She was only 23 years old.
The family had to set up a 1-900 number just so fans could express their condolences. Of course, they had to pay for their condolences, $3.99, but it was worth every penny.
The October 1995 trial of the woman who murdered Selena causes a media frenzy.
I think the circumstances of Selena's death captured the imagination of the public. It wasn't just a murder, but it was a killing by someone very close to her, someone who she had confided in.
The trial will reveal how Yolanda Saldivar began as the devoted founder of her fan club, went on to become a trusted friend and employee, before ultimately becoming her killer.
Yolanda systematically infiltrated the Selena world.
There's a very fine line between being a passionate fan and a stalker.
At the time of her death, Selena's estate was valued at $326,000. But in subsequent years, it will increase exponentially. In 2016, a collaboration with cosmetics giant MAC creates a Selena brand that's reported to be the best-selling celebrity collection in cosmetics history.
It's done so well, MAC is going to introduce a second version of that cosmetic line.
Since her death, Selena is more of an icon than ever. Posthumous honors, including a star on Hollywood's Walk of Fame, a commemorative postage stamp, and wax figures at Madame Tussauds are a testament to her ongoing cultural impact.
I mean, Selena is far more successful today than she ever was in life.
Selena continues to win new fans with a fresh appetite for her story. In 2016, 2 competing television projects launch an estate war between her husband, Chris Pérez, and her father, Abraham Quintanilla. The fight will dig up long simmering tensions and buried resentments.
For years after Selena's murder, the family was getting along just fine. But when Chris wanted to do a television show about Selena's life, that's when everything changed. And that was because Abraham wanted to be the one to tell that story. And this became a very, very big, contentious moment between a bereaved husband and a protective father.
But back in 1989, Selena and Chris Pérez's relationship is just beginning. And at first, it's strictly professional.
Abraham and AB start looking for a new guitarist for the band, and they are introduced to a 19-year-old Chris Pérez. Abraham is a little wary about it because Chris has an attitude and a little bit of a bad boy reputation, but he's so talented that he's willing to take a chance on him.
Also in 1989, after years of relentless touring and performing, Selena signs her first major record deal with EMI Latin.
Now she finally has a large label with deep pockets to promote her.
With her brother AB acting as her principal record producer and songwriter, Selena's debut album is released in October 1989. It spends 19 weeks on Billboard's Top 20 Regional Mexican Albums chart. This was the first of 5 albums that will generate $4 million in sales over the next 5 years.
Each album did better than the last, and her dream of crossing over to the pop charts seemed right at hand.
By 1990, Selena's popularity beyond the borders of Texas is growing. Her second album, Ven Conmigo, Come With Me, is the first Tejano record to achieve gold status, selling more than 500,000 copies. Around the same time, Selena and Chris Pérez's musical chemistry has become romantic. But the young lovebirds need to keep their relationship a secret, so Selena's father won't find out. The guitarist is not the type of man he wants courting his daughter.
Chris was known to have trashed hotel rooms, was known to drink to excess, but not with such repeated experiences that he was a drunk or that he was violent. But when you put him up against Selena's very good girl image, certainly he looks bad.
Selena is becoming a regional celebrity, and her fan base is exploding. One of those new fans is a nurse from San Antonio.
Yolanda Saldivar attended a Selena concert in 1991, and from that point, she was obsessed.
She is Selena's biggest fan, and she believes that Selena deserves the best possible fan club that she could have.
She kind of came up with this idea of let me run the fan club, and she was mature, she was a nurse, she seemed very respectable. Everyone said okay. And slowly but surely, she infiltrated this very tight family system.
After nearly a year of managing to keep their relationship a secret, Abraham discovers Selena and Chris's love affair.
And when he did, he was not happy.
According to Pérez's memoir, To Selena with Love, Abraham kicks Pérez out of the band, calling him a cancer on the family. When Selena protests, Pérez writes that Abraham said, "Of course he loves you. You're beautiful and you're rich." With Pérez out of her band, Selena is miserable. On April 2nd, 1992, Selena reaches a breaking point.
The two of them are dating in secret, but at some point, Selena wants more than that. She asks Chris to marry her, and they rush to the courthouse, get married, and before you know it, it's all over the news.
When Abraham Quintanilla finds out, it's reported that he's furious. But eventually, he accepts them as a married couple and asks Chris to rejoin the band.
You want your star performer to be happy, to get up on stage, give a great show, and not be at home in bed crying over a lost love. And besides the fact that this was his daughter, she was the one making the money.
A month after her marriage ceremony, Selena's album Entra a mi mundo, Enter My World, proves to be her breakthrough record. It reaches #1 on the US Billboard Regional Mexican Albums chart and stays there for 19 weeks and makes it into the top Latin 50 chart. The record and Selena explode with Mexican audiences. It's not just her music that wins Selena her adoring fans, but also her showmanship. A large part of her stage act and personal style is her own doing.
She was an early J-Lo, so to speak, and she had great style, great presence when she was on stage.
Selena was a fashion icon because she designed the majority of her outfits on stage. She was so passionate about this that she would go to Victoria's Secret and buy bras and then sew little crystals on them to make them bustiers.
Selena's love of fashion will inspire a dream business opportunity.
Creating these costumes for her to perform on stage, that's when it clicked with Selena that she was a talented designer. And this would eventually lead her onto the path where she would eventually open up her own boutiques.
It's a passion project that some observers would speculate is a way for Selena to exert independence from her father. But it will also be the lightning rod that culminates in a terrible tragedy.
The worst decision that the Quintanilla family ever made was bringing Yolanda into their fold.
On March 31st, 1995, legendary Tejano singer Selena Quintanilla is brutally gunned down as she's on the brink of major crossover success.
I knew Selena would be a superstar when I first heard her music, and I personally remember the day she was killed. I was shocked and saddened, and it was a dramatic moment in our history when she was murdered.
Selena's funeral is a monumental event in Texas. Fans turn out in droves for the public viewing.
Fans were so shocked, they didn't believe she was dead, so the family had to actually have an open casket service to prove it to people.
The funeral itself is held on April 3rd, a day after what would have been her 3-year wedding anniversary to Chris Pérez.
60,000 fans showed up at Selena's funeral, and floral arrangements were arriving at 50 a minute.
It was unbelievable. But what it really cemented was who Selena was, what she meant to people. both who she was as a person and who she was as an artist. This was a very powerful statement by fans, and that is why today she's still just as relevant.
Selena's close relationship with her killer will capture the public's attention, as will speculation about her estate.
At the time of Selena's death, it was reported that her estate was only worth just over $326,000.
It wouldn't be until after she was dead and her crossover album sold 2 million copies that her estate would begin to become wealthy.
Over 2 decades after her death, the hunger for all things Selena is still going strong.
Really, Selena was the first of her kind. Now, we have Latina stars that have made it to the mainstream.
Selena's story is very unique. There's always been a lot of interest in Selena's life story.
Who has the legal right to tell Selena's story is the spark that ignites an estate war in 2016 between her father and manager Aretha Quintanilla and her husband Chris Pérez. In the balance lies 2 competing television properties and millions of dollars.
When Chris was in talks to start a television show based on his marriage to Selena, the family was not going to have it. Abraham wanted to sell that story. He wanted to be in control of what was released out into the public about Selena's life.
But back in 1992, Abraham has come around and accepted Selena's marriage to Chris, despite his initial anger at their secret courtship.
In fairness to Abraham, once they did get married, he may not have liked it, but he respected it.
In 1993, with her new husband and her family by her side, Selena's career is reaching new and exciting heights.
One of the many highlights in Selena's career, she was from Texas, and to perform at the Houston Astrodome, which she did several times, it was just enthralling for her. And when she performed, it was record-breaking attendance.
Selena and the band plays the Houston Astrodome 3 consecutive times in 1993, 1994, and 95. Her 3rd performance sets the record with the largest ever attendance at a Tejano concert.
The Houston Astrodome capacity was something like 66,000. So if you multiply that by $10 a ticket, that's a pretty nice take, $660,000. Of that, Selena might see 50 or 60%.
Selena's not only breaking attendance records, she's also setting trends with an iconic stage outfit that continues to be emulated today.
When I think of Selena, I can't help but think of her purple halter jumpsuit with the big bell bottoms, just watching her strut along the stage, and she could wear that outfit today.
In January 1994, Selena decides to capitalize on her acute fashion sense, opening her own boutique, Selena Etc., which features her own original designs. And to help manage her new business, she turns to her trusted friend and fan club president.
Yolanda ran Selena's fan club, and she did that fairly successfully for a while. And then she was asked to run Selena's shops. Nobody in the family really was interested in doing that or capable of doing it, so it fell to Yolanda. And this was the beginning of the problems between Selena and Yolanda.
Selena opens the first boutique in Corpus Christi and another in San Antonio 8 months later. As manager of both stores, Yolanda has complete access to all checking and credit card accounts.
Selena thought of Yolanda as a friend. She trusted her so much that she really never checked up on anything she was doing.
Largely due to Selena's music career being on the fast track. On March 1st, 1994, she's thrilled to win her first Grammy Award for Best Mexican-American Album.
Winning a Grammy is a huge thing because it's given to you by your peers. It's given to you by the industry. And that was very, very important to Selena at that time. It was very, very important to EMI at that time because it showed them that they had a very hot and very legitimate property in Selena.
A few weeks later, Selena's next album, Amor Prohibido, Forbidden Love, is released and spawns 4 Latin #1 singles. Selena is Tejano's biggest star, and her crossover aspirations are realized when EMI gives the go-ahead to finally record an English-speaking album.
She was very recognized as a Latin artist, but the goal was always to break into the English language music industry.
In early 1995, as Selena and her band begin to write and record songs for the upcoming album, trouble is beginning to brew with Yolanda.
Issues start to arise not only in Selena's boutiques, but also her fan club. And there is only one common denominator with that, and that is Yolanda.
Word got back to Abraham that a lot of fans who had paid their fan dues weren't getting the merchandise that they had been promised. When Abraham checked it out, he couldn't get the receipts. He couldn't get the paperwork from Yolanda, and it seemed absolutely certain that she was embezzling money from the fan club and from Selena's boutiques.
It came to Abraham's attention that Yolanda had taken $30,000.
In early March 1995, Abraham and Selena confront Yolanda with what they had discovered.
And when they met her, she didn't have any answers to their questions.
Selena just feels ultimately betrayed by her friend.
Even more so when she and her father find evidence that Yolanda used money she stole from Selena, etc., to pay for a unique piece of jewelry she gave as a gift to the Tejano singing star.
Yolanda had a ring designed specifically for Selena.
The ring is decorated with an egg-shaped stone, fashioned in white gold, surrounded with 52 tiny diamonds and the letter S worked in filigree on each side. The ring is valued at $3,000.
There's no question that Yolanda stole from Selena's company to buy her that ring.
She knew Selena's taste. She understood it well. This is very, very calculated. But did she do it in a way to hurt Selena, or was she doing just to get closer and closer to Selena? And why did she want to be closer and closer to Selena? Because she is a crazed and obsessed fan. There is no other way to describe Yolanda Saldivar than that.
Selena will personally fire Yolanda, but in retaliation, Yolanda will make a desperate move that will go beyond all reason. It's 1995, and Tejano singer Selena Quintanilla's career is riding high. She's just won her first Grammy Award and is recording her first ever English language album.
The first step in Selena's crossover dream was her win at the Grammys in 1994. She never expected to be nominated, and she certainly never expected to win. But when she did, she believed that she could be a star in her home country.
But there is trouble in Selena's camp. Trusted friend and employee Yolanda Saldivar is manipulating her.
Yolanda was very strategic in her relationship with Selena. Yolanda told Selena's friends to go through her and not to bother Selena. This was isolating Selena from the outside world, so she became more and more dependent on Yolanda.
Yolanda is the Latin star's fan club president and manager of her fashion boutiques, Selena, etc. At some point, Selena discovers that Yolanda is embezzling money.
She was writing checks to herself, her mother, and her sister. Yolanda had taken $30,000. She was stealing from their businesses, potentially affecting the revenue of the clothing store and their reputation. This is crazy.
Selena makes the decision to fire her friend, but she needs to get some important paperwork from Yolanda first.
On March 30th, Chris and Selena agree to meet Yolanda because she's promised to have these documents. They show up, and she doesn't have them. And at this point, she confides in Selena that she had been raped in Mexico.
The next day, without telling her husband or family where she's going, Selena takes Yolanda to the ER.
Even though Selena had been betrayed by Yolanda, she still goes back to take care of her. She takes her to the hospital.
The examination turned up nothing. At this point, Selena is sure that Yolanda is lying to her.
And that's when the nightmare begins.
Selena arrives at the Days Inn with the intent of firing Yolanda. Yolanda knows this. She's expecting it, and she's not having it. She pulls out a gun that she purchased, and she points it at Selena. Selena runs for the hotel room door, and before she can get out, Yolanda fires the gun, striking her in the right shoulder, in her back. Selena runs into the lobby of the motel, literally bleeding to death.
Selena is rushed to the hospital, but it's too late. The promising young star dies just 2 weeks shy of her 24th birthday.
Yolanda ended a career that was worth tens of millions of dollars with a gun that cost $232.
Saldivar is eventually found guilty of first-degree murder. Selena's fans are jubilant. To this day, Saldivar remains in prison.
In 2025, Yolanda Saldivar is eligible for parole, which means she could get out of prison. The chances of that, very unlikely. Selena's fan base is still so huge This murder was still so cold-blooded. I think Yolanda Saldivar spends the rest of her days in prison, as she was sentenced to.
At her death, Selena's estate is estimated to be worth just over $326,000. But the release of her posthumous English-language album Dreaming of You on July 18, 1995, changes all that.
The terrible irony of Selena's career is that that dream that she had to cross over and be a pop star was only realized after her death. Once she dies, her first English-language album shot to #1 on the charts and sold more than 2 million copies, making her a bona fide superstar.
In the months after Selena's death, her widower and bandmate, Chris Pérez, is lost in grief. He later tells Billboard magazine, "When everything happened, I mean, in my mind, what it felt like is it was over for me. I'm done. I have nothing. What am I going to do now?"
Selena believed in the fairy tale, and she was building that fairy tale with Chris. They had dreams for a home, they had dreams for a family. None of it was realized. And so Chris, poor Chris, they're only married 3 years, he himself is young. He's left with all these dreams, no one to share it with.
Almost immediately after Selena's death, pirated merchandise and bootleg copies of her music sell out around the world. Her father and manager, Abraham Quintanilla, goes on the warpath, telling the Corpus Christi Caller-Times in an interview, "It just enrages me to know that these people are trying to get rich quick over my daughter's death. They're vultures."
Even before Selena was tragically murdered, Abraham took great pains to protect her image, her style, her music. After she was killed, things didn't change.
Abraham enlists the FBI for help, and within a month he sues dozens of merchandisers for copyright infringement.
It became a mission for her father because it was his daughter. It was very important to protect her valuable property rights, particularly her intellectual property rights.
Abraham Quintanilla is so intent on safeguarding Selena's legacy that 2 months after her funeral, he insists Chris Pérez and the rest of the family sign a legal document.
Abraham created an agreement so he was in total control of Selena Entertainment. All of her intellectual property covers TV and movie rights, it covers her image, and there's a catch-all provision at the end that covers anything else. If anyone wanted to use anything related to Selena, whether it was an image, whether it was a license, whether it was a TV show or movie, they needed to go through him.
In exchange for putting Abraham in full control of Selena's estate, Selena's brother and sister would each get 25% of profits. In a surprising move, he offers the same deal to Pérez.
Chris was the spouse, and under law, he was the one entitled to really all of it.
If he were my client, I wouldn't want him to sign this document. He's giving up a lot of his legal rights.
But Pérez does not put up a fight. He signs Abraham's document.
Chris could have fought harder, but he too was influenced by Abraham, just like Selena was.
Chris Pérez signing this document is a defining moment, and it will come to haunt him in the years to come.
Now in control, Abraham finds a way to capitalize on his daughter's legacy. In 1997, 2 years after her death, he executive produces the biopic Selena, which at the time stars a relatively unknown actress.
One of the great ironies of Selena's life and death was that she may be most responsible for catapulting Jennifer Lopez into the stratosphere.
Watching Jennifer Lopez's performance of Selena made me relate with her. You know, to see the struggles, to see the love of music, to see the love of performance, and the tragic end is devastating.
The film is a critical and financial success. Its theatrical run grosses a total of $35.5 million domestically, but its biggest success is it inspires renewed interest in the deceased music star.
This was a very successful box office film, and lots of people found out about Selena. It caused a spike in her record sales, it caused a spike in her merchandise sales, so it's a very important vehicle for maintaining Selena's legacy at the time.
After the film's success, Abraham continues to build on Selena's legacy and exert even greater control.
He is very careful with her image. He does not allow anything out there that would not align with what Selena would have wanted and what their family dreams were for Selena.
Chris Pérez eventually picks up the pieces of his life and successfully revives his music career, when in 2000, he wins a Grammy Award for Best Latin Rock Alternative Album with Resurrection. which he dedicated to Selena, and it features songs inspired by their relationship. And then Pérez decides to put down his feelings in print.
In 2012, Chris Pérez puts out a book regarding his life with Selena, and Abraham and the other family members authorize it and sign off on it.
His book, To Selena with Love, becomes an instant bestseller, and in 2016, Pérez is approached to develop it into a TV project.
Chris is approached by TV producers because they want to do a series based off his life with Selena. And out of nowhere, Abraham steps in and wants to stop this from happening.
Abraham Quintanilla invokes his 1995 contract with Pérez and files a suit against him. But this time, Selena's husband isn't backing down.
It leads to a huge fight. Now it's him versus Abraham.
In 2016, 20 years after the tragic death of Latin music star Selena, a legal battle breaks out within her family over her intellectual property rights, which are under the control of her father and manager, Abraham Quintanilla.
The smartest thing that Abraham did for Selena and his family was lock up all of her intellectual property rights virtually the minute that she had passed away. He was a very savvy operator, and he understood the music business, and he understood what those rights would be worth.
The war erupts when Selena's widower and guitarist Chris Pérez goes public with the news that he signed a development deal with global content creator Endemol Shine Latino to create a TV project based on his best-selling memoir, To Selena with Love.
The Quintanilla family was very upset when they found out that Chris was in talks to develop a television show based on his book and his relationship with Selena. That was because they saw it as a breach of contract.
The contract is the agreement that Chris Pérez and the Quintanilla family signed 2 months after Selena's death.
He agrees to sign a document with Abraham, specifically saying that he's allowing Abraham to control all of Selena's intellectual property rights. He will get 25% of the profits, but he gives up all control.
In December 2016, Abraham Quintanilla sues his son-in-law and Endemol Shine Latino for $1 million. He claims that Pérez's announcement has potentially sabotaged his deal with another network to develop a scripted TV series on his daughter. The deal is reportedly worth as much as $6 million.
A very important part of Selena's legacy was the Jennifer Lopez film. Once people saw that, they learned about Selena. So it was a very important vehicle for maintaining Selena's legacy at the time. Likewise, a television series would have very much the same kind of impact for Selena and her legacy as that film did years ago.
But Chris Pérez isn't backing down. His lawyers asked the court to dismiss Abraham's lawsuit, citing that Pérez's right to sell his story is covered under the First Amendment, freedom of speech. He also disputes the legality of the contract itself.
Chris fights back. He says he was under duress and the agreement he signed was done fraudulently. Part of his argument could be the fact that he was grieving from the loss of his wife and he was pressured into signing it. He was at a very vulnerable time in his life and maybe wasn't able to make the best decisions for himself.
As the legal battle gears up, Pérez turns to social media to share his memories with Selena fans. In 2017, Chris posts a live stream of him watching Selena, the movie, starring Jennifer Lopez.
He took the fans on a play-by-play of each of the scenes and what it meant to him, and really shared some insight as to what was going on with him and Selena at the time. There was a certain point where he said that, I'm going to stop watching the movie now because I wanted a different ending.
In early 2017, Chris Pérez receives some bad news. The court has rejected the appeal to dismiss the lawsuit. Abraham's lawyers waste no time petitioning the court.
They asked the courts for a declaratory judgment to stop any development by Chris of a television show. A declaratory judgment is different than a regular lawsuit. It's not about money, it's about stopping behavior.
Abraham Quintanilla also produces tax documents showing that he paid Pérez $524,050 over a 10-year period, from a high of $167,350 in 2016 to a low of $15,400 in 2010. Quintanilla claims that Pérez never questioned these payments. And Abraham strikes another blow when in December 2018, Netflix announces it will be producing a dramatic series based on Selena's life, with the full cooperation of the Quintanilla family.
Netflix is the most powerful streaming service in the world today. So Selena coming back to life on Netflix is a major opportunity. It's a major opportunity to keep her image out there with fans, and the family's not interested in anybody coming out with another television series that might possibly compete.
In May 2019, the court case comes to an end when Abraham Quintanilla and Endemol Shine Latino, Perez's production partner, reach a deal. The lawsuit will be dismissed and both sides will pay their own legal fees. But for Chris, the worst news is that the 1995 contract he signed will still stand.
And that contract forbid him from doing anything but writing his book. He could not do a television series.
On the legal case, Perez does not mince words about his father-in-law, telling the media, "The one thing that I can't stand is when I feel like I'm being bullied." In late 2020, Perez announces that he's retained a certified fraud examiner to audit Quintanilla's financial records and has requested copies of the Netflix contract. The series could potentially help Selena's estate earn additional revenue from various ancillary markets.
Having a television series on Netflix is only going to help the exposure of Selena and the brand, but also increase the earning power from the various merchandising and advertising promotions that surround her name and likeness.
While the current worth of Selena's estate is not known publicly, in 2020, Billboard ranked her third on their greatest of all-time Latin artists chart.
Selena still today is a huge presence and is still an earner.
When Selena, the series, premieres on Netflix on December 4th, 2020, it's embraced by Selena's legion of fans, old and new. Further proof that even 25 years after her death, the Queen of Tejano continues to endure and inspire.
Right now, Spanish language music is exploding everywhere. And yet what name do we continue to hear? 20 plus years after her death, we are still talking about Selena.
You think about how much potential was lost when we lost her, you know? And little girls could look up to her and just know that if you tried very hard, you could attain it. You know, you could be this little Hispanic girl from a small town in Texas and make it big and earn a Grammy. And isn't that the American dream?